All right, all right, all right. It's time for another one of these. I it's been an interesting week for me. I did something that's a little bit crazy with my television, the big television I have in my living room. The backlights, the LED backlights in the top half of it went out last week, and so I decided I was going to fix it myself. So I have disassembled my television and discovered that the problem. Yes, I was correct in the diagnosis of the problem. It's pretty obvious. And I've had to order the parts. I searched for the first day in out here in my area and could not find a shop that had these parts in stock. So I had to order them, and it's going to take, they're not here yet. It took 6 days. It's going to take 6 days for them to arrive. So I've got a disassembled giant television in my garage. The main screen of which I took up to my bedroom to keep safe. And it now sits in the place where my bedroom TV was. And my bedroom TV has become my living room TV until I get this thing sorted. But man, I'm a fairly clever guy. I have certain abilities. I was born poor, and I was raised to just kind of make do. And then my first gigs were in the theater, where everything is about making do. And then came to California, and I worked for Knott's Berry Farm for a long time in their tech theater department, where I was, doing things like building Halloween Haunt. I was an audio guy. I was a lighting guy. I was a carpentry guy. I worked for the fireworks show during the summer, and I kind of did it all. And that was my calling card, is I'm the guy who knew how to make a television antenna out of the pack of cigarettes in his pocket. True story. And I'm the guy who can kind of make things work. I was never afraid of chaos. And being unafraid of chaos meant that in those moments, in these, just like now, I am calm and confident, and I know that I have the stuff to make it to the other side. Not everybody has that. Actually, it turns out it's relatively rare. So when your TV goes out, you turn it over to a repair guy. Or you go, well, it's not worth fixing. You just replace it. Those are all options. So is mine. So I'm going to fix mine, and I'm going to do everything I can to put it back together exactly as it was, even though it's 6 days later, and I'm going to have to hypnotize myself probably to remember where all these little tiny screws and things go. And yes, I took some pictures and even a couple short videos, but it's never going to be enough. You get in the mode and you never stop. So anyway, this is how you distract yourself from what's going on as the world burns. Let's talk about it. As the World Burns is an awesome title for a podcast episode. So I think I'm going to keep that one. We are day 102, I think, of the Trump regime being in charge in the United States. They have annihilated the rule of law, ignored the court orders that tell them that they're violating people's rights. They have destroyed our status internationally. We no longer have allies in the world, unless you count Russia, I guess. And even that's tenuous at best. I guess Israel. I guess we're still buddies with Israel. We've destroyed the world economy with tariffs, and that's just happened in the last 4 weeks. What else? The thing that I wanted to talk about today. Science. They've declared war on expertise. They've declared war on science. And that's not even getting any press because we're too busy worried about our money, and beyond the money, we're worried about, the democracy and our rights, which, I mean, all this makes sense, but we're not paying attention to how much damage that they're doing to the science. So today on Trent Takes On, thank you for listening to this episode. There you go. I got it in under 6 minutes. Thank you for being with me on Trent Takes On. This episode is going to be just a brief discussion on science. And it's got to be brief because, honestly, I'm a little bit under the weather. And this is what happens when you have young children who go to public school, or even just who go to school. They're around a bunch of other kids. And then they come home, they bring home all kinds of madness. So my littlest, my little girl, she just turned 8 recently. She came home and she was like, I don't feel good. My throat hurts. And had a little, like the little Zoolander black lung cough. I got the black lung, Pops. So, we didn't think much of it, but by God, 2 days later, I've got the same business going on, and it's actually fairly unpleasant. And it reminds me of a time not that long ago when we had a worldwide pandemic, and it was bad. The United States of Indonesia has blocked it out. We pretend it didn't actually happen, but it absolutely happened. Over 1 million Americans lost their lives. Approximately 400,000 of them or so unnecessarily, because we did not lock down as tightly as other places. There was basically our response to the pandemic was relatively uneven. And so although we are only like 7% of the Earth's population, we incurred 20% of the deaths from COVID. Anyway, freedom, right? At the time, there was this guy named Dr. Anthony Fauci who was in the government. He had worked for the government for a long time in specializing in epidemics, diseases that were widespread, going all the way back to Reagan. And he was dealing with the AIDS epidemic in the 80s. And public knowledge and public understanding of how these things work, how these things spread, how dangerous these things are, is of the utmost importance. And we didn't get that from the Trump administration at the time. I'm going to call the first one administration. This one's a regime. But at least back then, there were people who we trusted. There were people who pushed back, like Dr. Anthony Fauci, who tried to get us to do the right thing. And, some of us did, some of us didn't. It was an uneven response. People are still pissed about it. People are still blocking it out. But I want to talk about today. And how would that pandemic have been different if the current regime were in charge? It would be left to just ravage the country. Blue states would do shutdowns. Red states would refuse to do shutdowns, and they would just business as normal. And the people in charge of Health and Human Services now are essentially anti-science. And medicine is a science. Your doctor is a very smart person who has passed a lot of testing and accumulated a lot of knowledge that they have the ability to draw on at any time. And that's what it's like to be a doctor. That's what it's like to be a nurse. There are special schools that you go to get all this information, all this awesome knowledge that you can then use to benefit the world. That's what it's like to be a scientist. Science is a curiosity at times, but it starts with a little kid staring at the sky and wondering, what are those dots and how do they work, and why is the moon sometimes this way and sometimes that way? And the next thing you know, that little kid is an astrophysicist working on celestial movements. And and an understanding of the universe as a whole. Science. It's cool. It's cool. It's science and engineering are what has made the human race as, I don't know, powerful isn't the right word for it. As it's given us the ability to manipulate our environment in essentially any way we want. We have used science and engineering to send people to the moon. The people who are in charge of the regime really want to put people on Mars. They haven't figured that out yet because the quickest we could get them there is about 8 months. And we're not entirely sure how we get them back yet. That's a bigger problem, honestly. If you're going to go, you better have a plan to come back. There's been a ton of movies about this. I don't know why people don't pay attention to art. The sciences are important. The sciences are important. They're why cars work the way they do. They're why your electricity in your home works the way it does. It's why our healthcare system works the way it does. It's not perfect. It needs a lot of help. The way it's very inefficient, and it doesn't actually focus on prevention. Instead, it focuses on treatment, and that's a huge problem. But the people in charge at HHS now don't even believe in vaccines. And all you need to know is that they've decided, they put out a new ruling for the FDA, a new rule for the FDA, Federal Food and Drug Administration, who gives approval for vaccines. That they cannot give approval for a vaccine unless it has undergone double-blind testing, which includes placebos. If you don't know what a placebo is telling someone you're giving them the drug and then not giving them the drug. In the case of an injectable, maybe it's saline instead of the actual vaccine. But anyway, it's telling someone that they're on a drug or that they've received a treatment that they haven't actually received. They've received a placebo, a placeholder that you have to measure to see. This is how you measure the effectiveness of certain drugs. Now, if you're working on like the latest NSAID, which is an anti-inflammatory thing, like ibuprofen, not a big deal to do placebos. But if you're vaccinating against something like rubella or tuberculosis or COVID-19, giving someone a placebo is essentially telling them that they're covered and then they're not. It is unbelievably unethical. It is placebos. When you do testing like this, you have to inform your testing group that there will be a certain number of people in the group that receive placebos. If you're talking about life-saving vaccinations, hard pass. Hard fucking pass. Why would you do that? Especially since the normal targets for vaccinations are children. So, look, science tells us that these things work. We know that because there's no more smallpox. We know that because there's almost zero polio in the world. We know that because we eradicated measles until, we had our first death from measles in 22 years, a couple months ago in Texas. And since then, we've had 2 more. And measles is spreading quickly because a lot of these areas have low vaccination rates. And it allows the disease to spread. And like my doctor told me, the thing about vaccines is a vaccine is not going to stop everything. A vaccine is the equivalent of a safety belt, a seatbelt for your immune system. So when you get into a crash with, measles or mumps or rubella, the MMR, all these different highly contagious transmittable diseases, when you come into contact with them, the seatbelt keeps you from, not necessarily doesn't keep you from getting it, doesn't keep you from getting hurt, but it reduces the amount of damage that you take significantly. So you want to wear a seatbelt. And in the world of public health, this whole discussion about vaccines as being a personal choice, well, yes and no. I suppose it is to a degree. I choose not to get the flu vaccine every year, the flu shot. Because in my experience, every single time I've gotten it, which is multiple times, 4 or 5 times now, I get the flu horribly bad that season. And when I don't get the flu. So I don't know why that is. It's just something that I've discovered. But if I do get the flu, I don't transmit it to others. I kind of quarantine myself. When you get the flu, you don't want to leave the house. You don't want to go anywhere, and chances are your whole family gets it at the same time. That's what happens around here, at least. And you just stay in. That's what happens to us. And that works out pretty well. But the flu, as it isn't that bad. And, there are medications that you could take as long as you get them early that will limit its but the flu, as the common flu as it goes around, is not the same thing as measles. It's not the same thing as mumps. It's nowhere near as contagious, and we've all learned a lot about contagion thanks to the pandemic, if we choose to remember it. I still have an entire bag full of different size masks, different purpose masks, and we still wear them when we are symptomatic. We still wear them when we are going to be in groups that we know that there's symptomatic people in them, especially indoors. But it's not like an overwhelming. We don't worry about it, but it's there for us. So we've got that in reserve. The question becomes, why is this administration so hell-bent for leather? I'm sorry, I said administration. Regime. Fascist regime. Why is this fascist regime so hell-bent for leather on ignoring science, climate science, health science? They've disbanded the Weather Service. Basically, well, they haven't disbanded it. They've cut as much out of it as they possibly could. They're basically trying to make us dumber. They're trying to hide that information from us so that they can turn it over to being privatized. And when you turn things over to being privatized, you have to pay for that information. You're going to have to pay for your weather reports. When they finally get up the balls to do away with things like NOAA and the National Weather Service, somebody's going to take it over, and it's going to be a private company, and you're going to have to pay for it. You're going to have to pay for that. The government does a lot of stuff, and a lot of it is research, because it is not necessarily profitable for, say, a pharmaceutical company to do research on a pharmaceutical company is going to do random research on the effects of this jellyfish and its toxins on the human body. And people are like, that doesn't happen. Actually, that's how Ozempic came to pass. Government research. Government research fills in the holes that capitalist companies, corporations are leaving behind, because there's a lot of dead ends in research, and they don't care to drop money into a hole. And so the government takes it up. And almost all that work happens through universities. And now the Trump regime is having an absolute war on higher education. They want to teach the curriculum. They want alternative viewpoints on things like climate science. There are no alternative viewpoints on climate science. Fuck. The data is unmistakable. Humankind is doing massive damage to this planet, and to its atmosphere, and that is creating a heating effect that is changing the very climate that we live in. And it will become unlivable unless we can start. So A, we have to arrest the damage that we're already doing, stop it, slow it down to the point where we can begin the recovery process. And B, come up with new techniques and new technologies and new approaches to reduce the amount of carbon emissions that have already soaked into our atmosphere. I mention this because there's a big thing going on in Iceland where they've figured out a great way to do this. Well, the problem is it's very small scale and it's very energy intensive. So if you're burning fossil fuels to create energy to scrub fossil fuels from the air, you've got a problem when you're in a negative loop like this. So they're working on that. Iceland is unique in that they can use a lot of geothermal energy, which is clean, which is cool. Geothermal is, of course, being heat generated from inside the earth. There is a future for us, should we choose to accept it. And this regime seems hell-bent for leather on keeping us from having that. Now, on the surface, it just feels like the only reasoning that they have for this is because they see it as wasted money, which is pretty fucking wild, to be honest. If it is wasted money, we're not wasting anywhere near enough money on it because it's a real problem. Therefore, it's not really wasted money. And B, here's the issue. If we are wrong, if we, the climate science believers, are wrong, and all we do is clean up the air and make it a little bit cooler, even though we're not hell-bent for, we're not destined to burn up in a cinder. Well, we were wrong and we didn't have to burn up into a cinder, but we got clean air and a cooler climate out of it. That's a good thing. However, if they are wrong and climate science is not, in fact, a hoax, which it's not, we may be looking at, 50 years? 50 years of a livable environment? There is no plan B, folks. They found a planet that might sustain life in the other part of in a nearby part of the galaxy that's known as the Milky Way, but it would take hundreds of years to get there. And that technology, of course, is far beyond our control. It's far beyond our understanding. We're not ready. There is no backup. Earth is it. Earth is our home. And instead of setting it on fire, maybe we should, try to take care of it. Climate science and the environment have not been the issue that they should be. Republicans, quote unquote conservatives, these fucking guys, they're basically owned by big oil. And if you're owned by fossil fuels, oil and coal, you're going to do what's best for oil and coal. And what's best for oil and coal is to burn this fucking planet to a cinder as quickly as possible. And we make as much money as we can in the meantime. I don't know what the end game is, because if you, we've known for a long time that this is bad. I joke all the time that if you don't believe in climate change, if you don't believe that fossil fuels create an unlivable atmosphere, get in your car in the garage and leave the garage door closed and start it up and run it for a bit and see how you feel. And don't do this. Do not do this. I should have put that at the beginning. Don't do that, because you will die. You will asphyxiate and you will die. We are burning fossil fuels and kicking it out into the atmosphere and just being like, well, whatever. Fuck it, right? And we've been doing that since the invention of the steam engines, where we were doing it with coal. And then we did it with cars. And I got to be honest, we're really just saying fuck it, aren't we? Please don't run your car in your garage with the door down. Don't do that. Excuse me. I find myself at a loss every time I hear something like, we're going to test vaccines with placebos now. Oh my God. I need, I picked the wrong regime to stop drinking. This is not the way any of this is supposed to work. We are supposed to be thoughtful, courageous at times. We are supposed to be brave and intrepid. We are supposed to take care of each other. We're supposed to look out for each other. Changing the way vaccines work or the way they're approved and their availability to people, that's not okay. Eliminating all of this research on cancer and diabetes and heart disease and addiction and obesity, none of that is helpful to anybody. Ending all of that research is not helpful to anyone. If you think that money should be better spent elsewhere, I defy you to explain where. Where is money better spent than in improving the lives of everyone? Where is money better spent than improving the environment that we all benefit from? This regime is ruining our world unapologetically. And there's not even a really good reason why. Money, I guess. But you don't get to take it with you. And the money thing doesn't benefit everyone. It only benefits those who already have it. How much is enough? You know, how much blood money is enough money? It's a question it's an honest question. It's a question there may not be an answer to. But in this current moment, everyone needs to remember to look at things critically. Critical thinking is the thing that that this regime really hates. Critical thinking tells you to ask why. Why? Why this? Why that? Why this? Why that? Why do you not like this? Why do you like this other thing? Why does this function the way it does? Why are they doing these things the way they're doing them? You're talking about deporting U.S. citizens. Think about that for a second. You're a U.S. citizen. Where the fuck are they going to deport you to? This is your home. This is where you're from. To pick up a U.S. citizen and to move them to another country is not deportation. It's kidnapping and human trafficking. Yeah. So why do they want to do that? Why do they want to just remove people from the country? Think about it. Critical thinking. They want to eliminate opposition. And they want us to live in fear. That's how dictatorships work. You live in fear. And if you don't think that we're living in a dictatorship, I charge you with watching just the highlights of the cabinet meeting that they had just a couple days ago in honor of the 100th day in office. It was disgusting on every level. These people sycophantically telling Donald Trump how great he is, the greatest president of all time. In spite of the fact that the polls say that only about 38% of Americans actually approve of the job this guy's doing. And of those 38%, almost all of them are his cult members. He's managed to align everyone not in the cult against him, for the record. But the most egregious one was Pam Bondi, our attorney general, who bragged about the seizing of millions of fentanyl capsules and some odd 3,400 kilos of fentanyl, and that has saved the lives. This was her quote. That has saved the lives of 258 million Americans. Million. Okay. 258 million Americans were saved from fentanyl overdose in the first 100 days. Really. Really. So the 347 million Americans, 258 million of us were about to die from fentanyl overdoses. What? It defies logic. We're so far into the rabbit hole. We're so far into The Handmaid's Tale, The Man in the High Castle. We're so far down the path to 1984 and Big Brother and an anonymous police state just disappearing people. Today is May 1st. It is May Day. There are a bunch of protests today. I'm really excited to see the footage. There's nothing planned in my immediate area, and I am under the weather as it is. My voice has already started to shoot here. Excuse me. So, and it's a school day. I gotta be here for my kids. So I don't get to participate today. But the American people are finding their voice. The judiciary branch is finding its voice. But it's going to take people inside the executive branch turning on him to change the tide. Because they're ignoring the polls, claiming that they're fake. They're ignoring the protests, claiming that we're all paid. Which is fucking hilarious. Whoever's bankrolling this shit is rich as hell. Like way richer than normal people. Nobody's paying protesters. Now, they pay people to show up at their events. Maybe that's where they get this shit from. You know, I say this every week. It's a dangerous time. I say this every week that all we have is each other. And those are true statements. And I try to be positive. Hey, my landscapers are at work. I try to be positive, but it's not always easy. And there are moments where I just say that, oh my God, I can't believe that this is happening. And, you know, me putting a digital footprint out there for people to follow is kind of like calling attention to myself. But at the same time, I'm like, this is what we're supposed to do. The voice of opposition is in our blood. It is who we are. We are not supposed to kowtow to monarchies. We are not supposed to allow demagogues and authoritarians to take over our country and boss us around and screw up our lives. And that's what's happening. Everything from the way they're fucking with Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare to the way they're disappearing people off the streets, to the way they're treating the immigrants to this country, to the way they're treating U.S. citizens like they did in Oklahoma City just a few nights ago, when a group that didn't even identify themselves broke into a house that they claimed that they had a warrant for to look for somebody who wasn't even there. Somebody who didn't even live there. They terrorized this poor lady and her 3 daughters, and they made them stand outside in the rain while they ransacked the house and stole their electronic devices, their computers and their phones. They stole the cash that they had on hand, and they took it all as quote unquote evidence. Evidence And they left this woman and her family no way to get those items back. So what the fuck are they supposed to do? That is the definition of unconstitutional search and seizure. Looking for someone that wasn't even there. Tearing the place apart and stealing everything. Terrorize these people. And that's not the only story you're going to hear like this. And unless they're stopped from within, unless the whistleblowers come out and say, look, we can't do this. This is not okay. Shit like that is going to continue. Hopefully, the protests continue. Hopefully, the message gets out and the voice of the people gets heard. We are not okay with any of the shit that this regime is doing. It's all bad. From the tariffs to the ridiculous extrajudicial deportations. People in this country get due process, regardless of their citizenship status. Full stop. Full fucking stop. We talked about this in our coverage of the Bill of Rights. See, I want this to be a better future for my kids. It's not even about me. It's not about me anymore. It's about the future generations. It's about the little kids that I see every day when I walk my kids to and from school. It's about all of them having the same kind of opportunities at a life of happiness and prosperity that we're supposed to promise to everyone who lives in this land of plenty. And whether you have kids or not, you're still a part of this society. You still have to interact with other people. And you know what those other people are? Somebody's kids. You were somebody's kid. Think about that. Think about who you are, who you interact with, and what kind of future that you want for everyone that you know. It's time for some good trouble, guys. So stay in it. Stay in the good trouble. Keep making your voice heard. To quote Happy Harry Hardon from Pump Up the Volume, talk hard. That's what it is, baby. I will be back at you next week doing something. Oh, I don't even know what. I will give you an update on my TV because the part's supposed to show up on Saturday. So I'll give you an update on the TV. Until then, look, I thank you all so much for listening this far. I appreciate you all so much. This went a lot longer than I thought it would, but hey, you know what? Sometimes when you got shit to say, you got shit to say. Please be good humans. It's the least that we can do. Until next time, love you all.